The first sound I remember that night wasn't laughter or forks clinking on plates, or even the low hum of the ceiling fan. It was coughing. My coughing. A sharp, dry one that rattled my chest so hard I had to grip the edge of the table to steady myself. Everyone froze for a second, eyes darting my way, but then, of course, my granddaughter Sarah let out this little giggle, like she'd just witnessed the funniest thing in the world. "Careful, Grandma," she said, smirking over her glass of wine. "Don't go dying on us right here at the table." The whole room went quiet. I swear even the gravy boat paused midair in my daughter's hand. I pressed a napkin to my lips, mostly to hide the anger that was burning up my face. The cough passed, but the sting of her words didn't. I thought to myself, did that girl just mock me? At my own table? And here's the kicker. I wasn't just sick with some little cold. The whole family knew I'd been battling a lung condition for months. I'd been in and out of the doctor's office, barely able to sleep at night without wheezing. They'd all acted sympathetic, at least to my face. But in that moment Sarah stripped it all bare. And the worst part? Nobody said a word to defend me. My daughter, her mother, just shifted in her seat, avoiding my eyes. My son poked at his mashed potatoes like they were the most fascinating thing on earth. Even the little ones, my great-grandkids, looked back and forth between us like they weren't sure if they'd just heard something wrong. I forced a laugh, soft so it wouldn't sound like I was breaking inside. "Well," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "if I do, I hope someone else knows how to cook the turkey next year." But inside, oh honey, inside I was boiling. Because here's what you need to understand. This wasn't just about one cruel joke. This was a crack in the dam, and I could already feel the flood building behind it. Sarah had always been sharp-tongued, but to mock my illness in front of everyone? That was a challenge. A dare. And she had no idea that I wasn't the kind of woman to let something like that slide. I remember pushing back my chair when dinner wrapped up, my body aching but my mind sharper than it had been in months. I watched her laugh and clink glasses, acting like the queen of the evening. She didn't even glance my way, as if I was just background. That's when the thought first came to me. A dangerous little thought that started like a whisper. What if I taught her a lesson? I didn't know yet that it would end with me handing her an envelope, cold, legal, and final. But sitting there watching her mock me under her breath, I decided something. If she wanted to act like my illness made me weak, I'd show her just how strong I still was. When the plates were cleared and the kids shuffled off to the living room to fight over cartoons, the house settled into that heavy after-dinner quiet. You know the one. Bellies full, conversations thinning out, everybody secretly wishing they could undo that third helping of potatoes. Except me. I sat there in my chair, hands folded tight in my lap, chewing over Sarah's words like a piece of gristle I couldn't swallow. "She's young," my daughter Karen said finally, breaking the silence. She was stacking dishes, her back to me like she couldn't bear to meet my eyes. "You know she didn't mean it, Mom. Sarah jokes about everything." I almost laughed. Not the good kind. The sharp, bitter kind. "She didn't joke, Karen," I said. "She mocked me. She mocked my illness." Karen flinched just barely. I caught it. She kept her hands busy rinsing plates, clattering silverware into the sink. That's her way. Busy hands, no eye contact, avoid the fight. Meanwhile, Sarah herself breezed into the kitchen, phone in hand, still giggling at something on the screen. She didn't even look at me. Just swiped at her messages and said, "Don't be so dramatic, Grandma. I was just kidding. You've coughed worse than that at bingo night." And then she laughed again like she'd just told the best joke in the world. I stared at her, really stared. And for a second I didn't see my granddaughter. I saw a stranger. This smug, self-satisfied girl standing in my kitchen, wearing perfume I probably paid for, living under a roof I maintained, eating food I cooked. And she had the audacity to treat me like a punchline. That's when something old and stubborn in me sat up straight. The part of me that raised 3 kids on my own, kept the lights on, and worked 2 jobs when my husband passed. The part of me that doesn't roll over when somebody disrespects me. But I didn't speak. Not yet. Instead, I said in the calmest voice I could muster, "Sarah, sweetheart, why don't you put your phone down and help your mother with those dishes?" She didn't even look up. "No. I've got plans." And just like that she was gone. I went to bed that night with my chest tight, not from coughing but from anger. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every smirk. My body was tired, but my mind wouldn't rest. That's when all the little things I'd brushed aside started flooding back. Like how Sarah had been temporarily living with me for almost a year now. Said she just needed a place to stay after college while she saved money. But I never saw a dime go into savings. What I did see were Amazon packages piled up by the door, late nights out with friends, and mornings when I'd be the one picking up her coffee cups from the counter. Or how she always had something smart to say when I mentioned doctor's appointments. "Don't old people love making everything about their health?" She'd laugh. "Careful, Grandma, you'll outlive us all at this rate." Little cuts every time. And I'd let them slide. I told myself she was just young, just thoughtless, that she'd grow out of it. But after that dinner, I knew better. This wasn't immaturity. This was disrespect. And I'd been feeding it, housing it, letting it grow under my own roof. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't just angry. I was clear. Sarah thought my illness made me weak. Well, she was about to find out just how wrong she was. You ever notice how once you start paying attention, all the little things you ignored suddenly stand out like neon signs? That's what happened with me and Sarah. The morning after that dinner, I shuffled into the kitchen, still sore from a restless night. And what do I find? My sink piled high with dishes. Every plate, every fork from the night before. My daughter Karen had gone home. My son too. Everyone cleared out. And who was still sleeping soundly in her room while I stood there staring at the mess. I almost laughed out loud. Of course. Now I'm not unreasonable. I know what it's like to be young, staying up late, sleeping in. But this wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the 10th. This girl had been living like a guest at a hotel. Except the hotel was me and I was the maid, the cook, and the landlord all rolled into one. I filled the sink with hot water, but instead of scrubbing I just stood there staring at the bubbles. That thought came back. What if I taught her a lesson? That's when I started looking closer. Sarah wasn't exactly careful with her things. She left her mail on the counter, receipts in her pockets, half-opened boxes shoved into corners of the living room. One day when she was out, I picked up a slip of paper she'd left on the coffee table. A bank statement. Now I didn't go snooping. It was sitting right there in plain sight. But when I glanced at the balance, my eyes about popped out of my head. She wasn't broke. Not even close. The girl had thousands sitting in her account. Thousands. And yet here she was, freeloading off me like some charity case. The anger that bubbled up in me, it was almost enough to make me cough again. And then another thing. A week later, I overheard her on the phone with a friend. I was in the hallway. She was in her room with the door wide open, like she didn't care who heard. "Yeah, I'm still at Grandma's," she said, laughing. "It's basically free living. I mean, the old lady can't really say no, right? She's too soft. Besides, she should be glad to have company. Otherwise she'd just rot in that house alone." I froze. My hand on the banister, my breath caught. Too soft. The old lady. Rot in that house alone. Do you know what it feels like to be talked about like you're already dead? I stood there in the hallway staring at her closed door, my chest tight. And for the first time in a long while I didn't feel weak at all. I felt dangerous. The more I listened, the more I saw. She wasn't just mocking me at dinner. She'd been mocking me all along. To my face she played the sweet granddaughter act. "Thanks for dinner, Grandma. Love you, Grandma." But behind my back, she was using me. Bragging about how easy she had it, living rent-free, playing her family like fiddles. And that's when the decision solidified in my mind. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to beg her to change or cry or make speeches about respect. No. I was going to show her the side of me she'd forgotten about. The side that built this house brick by brick, paid every mortgage payment, and raised a family with nothing but grit. He thought I was too soft? Well, I started making phone calls. First to my lawyer. A man I hadn't spoken to in years, but who still answered the phone like we just had coffee yesterday. "Of course, Mrs. Carter," he said when I explained the situation. "If she's not on the lease, if she's not paying rent, you're within your rights to serve notice. I'll draft the paperwork." My hands were trembling when I hung up. Not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what I was about to do. Second, I called Karen. My daughter. Sarah's mother. When I told her, she gasped. "Mom, you can't be serious. She's just a kid." "She's 24, I cut in. "She's not a kid. She's an adult who thinks she can mock me while I put a roof over her head." "Not anymore." There was silence on the other end. I could hear Karen breathing, could picture her chewing her lip like she always does when she's caught between loyalty and truth. Finally she whispered, I can't stop you. But if you do this, Sarah will never forgive you. I let the silence stretch. Then I said, maybe she doesn't need to forgive me. Maybe she needs to remember who I am. And with that I hung up. That night I slept like a baby. For the first time in weeks my lungs didn't feel so heavy. Because I knew what Sarah didn't. The next time she smirked at me across the dinner table I'd be ready. And it wouldn't be me coughing into a napkin. It'd be her choking on the words in that eviction notice. The papers came in a crisp envelope. Thick white official. I sat at the kitchen table when the mail arrived, the sound of that envelope sliding across the wood sharper than any knife. I stared at it for a long time, fingers tracing the edge, my heart beating steady. This was it. My answer. My justice. But I didn't want to just hand it to her. No. I wanted her to feel it. To understand deep down that she had pushed me too far. So I waited. And wouldn't you know it, the perfect chance came sooner than I thought. A week later we had another family dinner. Not as big as the last, just me, Karen, my son Michael, and of course Sarah. She strolled in late, sunglasses on her head, heels clicking across my floor like she owned the place. Sorry, she said, tossing her purse on the couch. Traffic. Never mind that she'd had all day. Never mind that the rest of us were sitting there waiting. Dinner went about how you'd expect. Small talk, a little bickering between Karen and Michael, the clink of silverware. And then it happened again. The cough. My cough. This time it was softer but enough to make me press the napkin to my mouth. And just like before, Sarah leaned back in her chair, smirk tugging at her lips. Careful, Grandma, she said. Don't want you keeling over in the mashed potatoes. Though at least you'd go out surrounded by carbs. Karen's fork clattered against her plate. Michael froze mid-bite. Me. I smiled. Oh, sweetheart, I said, my voice sugar-sweet. Don't you worry about me. Then I slid the envelope across the table. Slow. Deliberate. Her smirk faltered. What's this? Open it, I said. She tore it open, her eyes scanning the first page. And I watched it happen. The confusion, the disbelief, the dawning horror. What? Her voice cracked. Eviction. Grandma, what is this? That, I said, leaning back in my chair, is notice. You've got 30 days to find your own place. The room went dead quiet. Even the old clock on the wall seemed to hold its tick. You're kicking me out? She stammered, her face pale. You can't be serious. I live here. I met her eyes, steady as stone. No, Sarah. You use me. You mock me. You brag to your friends about how easy you've got it here, how the old lady won't say no. Well, I'm saying no now. Her jaw dropped. She looked at her mother, desperate. Mom, are you hearing this? Tell her she can't do this. Karen's eyes were glassy, her lips pressed tight. But she didn't speak. Sarah turned to Michael. Uncle Mike. Michael shook his head. Don't look at me, kid. He's right. You've been walking all over her. That's when the tears came. Crocodile ones, big and dramatic. I can't believe you do this to me, Grandma. After everything I've done for you. And that's when I laughed. Out loud, sharp, cutting through her performance like a knife. Everything you've done for me? I said, eyebrows raised. Sweetheart, I feed you. I house you. I've picked up your trash, your laundry, your dishes. You've done nothing but drain me. The tears dried quick after that. She dropped the act, her face twisting into anger. You're heartless. You're just a bitter old woman and you're going to regret this. Nobody will take care of you when you're really sick. Her words hung in the air like smoke. Ugly. Poisonous. And then I dropped the other card. The one she didn't see coming. Oh, I'll be fine, I said softly. Because unlike you, I planned ahead. This house. It's paid off. My insurance? Covered. And when the time comes, I won't need a freeloader pretending to care. I've already spoken to Michael about helping with arrangements. So you see, Sarah, I don't need you. I never did. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. For the first time since she'd moved in, Sarah looked small. Me. I felt 10 years younger. She stormed off, of course. Slammed her door upstairs, blasted her music loud enough to rattle the walls. But it didn't matter. The papers were served. The clock was ticking. And as I sat there at the quiet table, I looked at Karen and Michael and said the words I hadn't dared admit before. She thought I was weak. But she's about to find out exactly how strong I still. The next 2 weeks were tense. You could cut the air in my house with a butter knife. Sarah stomped around, slammed cabinets, left passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. Bought milk again. Guess the Wi-Fi isn't free either? Like I was going to crumble and tell her to stay. But I didn't. Every night I folded another corner of the calendar. 30 days was a slow drumbeat, steady and sure. One night she came into the living room where I was knitting. She stood there in the doorway, her arms crossed, eyes all puffed from crying. "Grandma," she started, her voice softer than I'd heard in months. "I know we've had our differences, but do you really want me gone? What if something happens to you? Who's going to be here?" I set my needles down, looked right at her. "You mean who's going to be here to laugh when I cough? Who's going to brag to her friends about her free ride?" Her lips pressed together. No answer. "Sarah," I said gently, "you had a home here. A real one. But you didn't treat it like that. You treated it like a hotel. Me. Like staff. That's not family. That's not love. That's using someone until they've got nothing left." For a moment her eyes flickered. Like maybe she understood. Like maybe she felt ashamed. But then it was gone, replaced by that stubborn pride of hers. "You'll regret this," she said again, sharper now. "When you're really sick, when you can't even stand up, you'll wish you hadn't pushed me away." I smiled. "Come. Steady. No, sweetheart. I'll regret that I let it go on this long." The day finally came. Boxes stacked by the door, her purse slung over her shoulder. She didn't hug me. Didn't thank me. Just glared, muttered something under her breath, and dragged her suitcase down the walkway. I watched from the porch, the evening light casting her long shadow across the lawn. For the first time in months, the house felt lighter. Like it could finally breathe again, and so could I. I thought that would be the end of it. But as her car pulled out of the driveway, my phone buzzed. A message from Karen. "Sarah just called me. She says you only kicked her out because you're hiding money. That you don't want anyone around when you're gone so you can control everything. Is that true?" I sat there staring at the screen. My hands were steady. My chest was calm. And for the first time I realized something. This wasn't over. Sarah might have been out of my house. But she wasn't done trying to poison the family against me. I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and let out a long, slow breath. "She wanted a war," I whispered to myself. "Well, she's about to find out she picked the wrong old lady." Families are funny things. You can share blood, history, even the same set of table manners. But the minute somebody stirs the pot, all that togetherness can splinter faster than glass on tile. And Sarah? Oh, she didn't just stir the pot. She dumped the whole salt shaker in it and then handed everyone a spoon. It started with the phone calls. Karen rang me first. Her voice was tight, clipped, like she was trying not to choose sides. "Mom," she said, "Sarah told me you blindsided her with those eviction papers. Is that true?" I set down my teacup, nice and calm. "No, Karen. I didn't blindside her. I warned her plenty of times with my words. She just didn't listen. Now she gets to listen to paper." "Mom," she sighed like I was the difficult one. "She's hurt. She feels like you don't want her around." "That's because I don't," I snapped, sharper than I meant to. "Not when she mocks me and treats this house like a hotel." Silence stretched across the line. I could practically hear her chewing her lip, that same nervous habit she's had since she was a girl. Finally, she whispered, "She says you only kicked her out because you're hiding money. That you don't want anyone close to you." I laughed sharp. If I was hiding money, it sure wouldn't be from her. She'd spend it on nail polish and takeout before I could blink. Karen didn't laugh. That's when I realized it. Sarah had gotten to her. She'd already planted seeds of doubt. A few days later, Michael called. "Ma," he said, his voice low, "Sarah's been running her mouth to the cousins. Telling folks you've lost it. That you're sick and paranoid. That you're treating her like trash for no reason." My blood boiled. "No reason?" I said. "Michael, she mocked my illness at my own dinner table. She brags to her friends about living free here. You call that no reason?" He was quiet a moment, then sighed. "I know, Ma. I believe you. But not everyone's going to. She's playing the victim card hard." I closed my eyes, pinched the bridge of my nose. Victim card. That girl was dealing them like a blackjack dealer in Vegas. By the end of the week I could feel the shift. Nieces and nephews stopped calling. A neighbor I'd known for years asked me in that pitying tone, "Everything all right with your granddaughter?" I heard she had to leave suddenly. Oh, Sarah was clever. I'll give her that. She knew she couldn't fight me in court, so she fought me in whispers. She fought me in stories, twisting them until I looked like the villain. But here's the thing about stories. Truth has a way of clawing itself out. And I wasn't about to let her be the only one telling this one. So I invited the family over. Not just Karen and Michael this time. The cousins, the aunts, anyone who'd been listening to Sarah's sob story. I told them dinner was on me, just like old times. When they came in, I greeted them with a smile, set the table, poured the sweet tea. Let them all sit there thinking it was going to be another harmless family meal. And once everyone had a plate in front of them, I set my fork down, folded my hands, and looked around the table. I know Sarah's been talking, I said plainly. And I want you all to hear my side. Not whispers. Not half-truths. From me. The room went still. You could have heard a pin drop on the linoleum. I told them everything. About the mockery at dinner. About the bank statement she'd left out showing she wasn't broke. About overhearing her on the phone calling me the old lady and bragging about her free ride. Faces shifted around the table. Surprise, discomfort, even a few guilty glances. Then I leaned in and dropped the line that sealed it. She says I'm hiding money? Maybe I am. I'm hiding it from her. Because no matter how much I've got, she hasn't earned a dime of it. And I'll be damned if I let disrespect live under my roof rent-free. The words hung in the air, heavy as thunder. Karen's eyes were wet, torn between me and her daughter. Michael's jaw was set firm, his loyalty clear. The rest? They looked like they didn't know whether to clap or crawl under the table. Me? I just sat back, calm as a lake, sipping my sweet tea. Because the battle lines were drawn now. And the real war had only just begun. It's funny, once you decide you're not going to play nice anymore, you start noticing things you overlooked before. Little details. Slips of paper. Odd looks. And honey, Sarah had left a trail of breadcrumbs all over my house. It started with the mail. See, Sarah had been getting envelopes delivered here since she moved in. That never struck me as strange. After all, she was living here, at least officially. But once she left, the letters kept coming. Credit card statements. Catalogs. Things with her name on them but addressed to my house. One afternoon I picked up a thick envelope with a bold red stamp. Past due. I almost tossed it aside, but something in me said no. I slid it open and my eyes widened. A credit card bill. Not for a few $100s. Oh, this was thousands. Shopping sprees, online orders, fancy restaurants. All charged to her. My stomach turned. So that was why she couldn't afford to move out. Not because she didn't have money. Because she was drowning in debt. And instead of facing it, she parked herself under my roof, living the good life while her bills piled up here like snowdrifts. I set the envelope down slowly, my hands trembling. Not with fear. With anger. But it didn't stop there. A few days later I got a knock on my door. A man in a rumpled jacket stood there, holding a clipboard. Is Sarah Carter here?" he asked, shifting from foot to foot. My heart sank. "No," I said carefully. "Why?" "Delivery," he muttered, scratching his head. "She ordered furniture. Big pieces. Already paid, but, this is the address on the invoice." "Furniture?" I blinked at him. Sure enough, he waved the paper and there it was. My address. My house. And it hit me. Sarah had been using my home as her front. Ordering things, shipping them here, keeping her little web of lies intact while she told the world she was just staying with Grandma out of kindness. I forced a smile, told the man she'd moved, and shut the door. Then I leaned against it, my chest tight. Mocking me was one thing. Living free under my roof was another. But dragging my name, my house, into her mess? That was a whole new level of betrayal. That night I called Michael. "Ma?" he answered, concern in his voice. "You all right?" "No," I said flatly. "I found out why Sarah was so desperate to stay here. She's been using my address for her debts. And I'll be damned if I let collectors or delivery men come knocking on my door for her mistakes." He cursed under his breath. "Unbelievable. You want me to come by? We can sort through this." I almost said yes, but then I stopped. Oh, this was my fight. My house. My dignity. "Not yet," I said. "But I'll tell you this much. The next time Sarah tries to make me look weak to the family, I'll be ready with the truth. All of it." And as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized something chilling. Sarah hadn't just mocked my illness. She hadn't just freeloaded. She'd gambled with my home, my name, my reputation. And if she thought I'd sit quiet while she dragged me down with her, she was about to learn the same lesson she should have learned at that dinner table. You don't mess with grandma. If there's one thing I've learned in 70 years, it's this. When someone like Sarah feels cornered, they don't back down. They lash out. They double down on their lies, clawing for any excuse to make themselves look like the victim. And oh, she lashed out. The first shot came in the form of a text message. Not to me, to the family group chat. Grandma kicked me out because she's sick and paranoid. She's hiding money, she's losing it mentally. Somebody needs to check on her before she does something dangerous. I saw it pop up on my phone while I was watering my plants. My hands shook, but not from weakness. From fury. Dangerous. Me. This from the girl who couldn't remember to turn off the stove twice last month. The replies trickled in. Some cousins sent those awkward little emojis. Wide eyes, question marks. Karen typed a hesitant, Sarah, maybe don't put this all in the chat. Michael fired back fast. That's enough. Don't drag Ma through the mud because she finally set boundaries. But the damage was done. Doubt had been planted. Then came the phone call. Mrs. Carter? A smooth voice, official. This is David Marks, attorney representing your granddaughter Sarah. She's expressed concerns that she was unfairly evicted and that your health may have compromised your judgment. I nearly laughed in his ear. By health? I said. Son, the only thing compromised here is Sarah's sense of responsibility. She's 24 years old, swimming in debt, mocking my illness and living rent-free under my roof. If she wants to take me to court, I'll gladly bring her bank statements and overdue bills with me. Shall I send you copies? Silence. Then a cough. Perhaps we can resolve this privately. I hung up on him. That was the moment I knew what I had to do. See, Sarah was trying to play chess with me. But she forgot. I raised 3 kids on a shoestring budget, balanced bills down to the penny, and fought with insurance companies that would eat a weaker woman alive. I know how to keep records. So I gathered them. Every bank statement she'd left out. Every overdue notice. I even jotted down dates and times I'd overheard her mocking me or bragging to friends. When you've lived long enough, you learn the power of writing things down. By the time I was finished, I had a neat little folder. Proof. Not just my word, not just Grandma's memory. Cold, undeniable proof. And I was going to use it. The next Sunday, Karen stopped by. She looked tired, weighed down, like she'd been stuck in the middle of a tug-of-war. Mom, she sighed, sitting at my kitchen table. Sarah's upset. She says you're making her look like a criminal. Upset, I said, sliding the folder across the table. Then maybe she shouldn't act like one. Karen frowned, opened it, and her eyes went wide. Page after page. Overdue bills, debt collectors, even the furniture order that had nearly landed in my living room. She's been using your address for all this? Karen whispered. I nodded. She wanted to play victim? Fine. But I'm done keeping her secrets. Next time she opens her mouth, I'll show the whole family exactly what she's been up to. Karen's face crumpled. She pressed her hands to her temples. Oh God. I didn't know it was this bad. No, I said softly. You didn't want to know. But now you do. I leaned back in my chair, feeling that old fire in my chest. Sarah thought she could smear me, drag me down with her lies. But I had something stronger than lies. I had the truth. Written down. Neatly filed. Ready to burn through her web like sunlight through cobwebs. And I was just waiting for her to make the next move. You'd think after all that Sarah would have slunk off quietly. Found herself an apartment, learned her lesson, maybe even apologized. But no. That girl had one last card she wanted to play. And she chose to play it at, where else? The dinner table. Karen called me, voice cautious. Mom, Sarah wants to come to Sunday dinner. She says she wants to clear the air. I almost said no. Almost told her I'd had enough air with Sarah to last me a lifetime. But then I thought of that folder sitting in my desk drawer. So I said, fine. Let her come. And I set the table with the good china. That Sunday, Sarah walked in like she owned the place. Hair perfect, smile wide, a performance already in motion. She hugged Karen tightly, gave Michael a polite peck on the cheek, then turned to me. Grandma, she said sweetly, her voice dripping honey, you look well. How's your health? The sarcasm wasn't lost on me. But I smiled back, steady as stone. Better than you'd think, sweetheart. Dinner was tense. Forks clinking, shallow small talk. And then Sarah cleared her throat, set her wine glass down, and leaned forward like she was about to make a speech. I just want to say, she began, looking around the table, that I've been really hurt by what's happened. I thought family meant taking care of each other. But instead I've been accused of things that aren't true. And frankly, I'm worried about Grandma. She's not herself lately. Gasps around the table. Karen shifted uncomfortably. A cousin whispered something under her breath. Sarah pressed on. I think we all need to be honest about what's happening here. Grandma's health. It's affecting her judgment. She's making rash decisions. She even tried to say I'm irresponsible with money. Me. He gave this little laugh so fake it made my skin crawl. I mean, look at me. Do I look like someone drowning in debt? That's when I set down my fork. Fully. Deliberately. And I reached for the folder. Sarah, I said, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass, you're right about one thing. We do need honesty at this table. I slid the folder across the wood. Everyone's eyes followed it. What's this? She asked, frowning. Proof, I said simply. She opened it. Her face went pale. Page after page. Overdue bills. Credit card balances. The furniture order. Even the note from the debt collector who'd come to my door. Whispers rippled around the table. Karen's face flushed. Michael leaned back, arms crossed, watching Sarah squirm. You went through my things, Sarah stammered, her voice rising. No, I said firmly. You left them lying around my house. My house that you used as your address. My house that collectors came knocking on. My house you bragged about freeloading in. Don't twist this, Sarah. Not here. Not in front of family. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. I leaned in, steady, unflinching. You wanted to play the victim. But you forgot something. Victims don't leave paper trails. Liars do. The silence after that was thick. Heavy. Karen's eyes brimmed with tears. Michael shook his head. And the rest of the table? They finally saw Sarah for who she was. She shoved back her chair, face red, hands trembling. You're all against me, she spat. You'll regret this. When Grandma's gone and the wills read, you'll see. And with that she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the china rattled in the cabinet. The family sat frozen, staring after her. Finally, I picked up my fork again. Come, steady. I speared a piece of roast and said, well, that's the last time she mocks me at this table. And just like that, the spell broke. That night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the quiet house. For the first time in months, I didn't feel weak. Didn't feel mocked. I felt in control. But as I sipped my tea, a thought crept in. Sarah wasn't done. Not yet. And I knew it. The house was quiet again. Not the heavy, suffocating quiet from before. No, this was a different kind. A lighter kind. For the first time in months, I could hear myself think without the stomp of Sarah's heels on the stairs, without her phone blaring at midnight, without her little digs cutting at me over dinner. Peace. But peace has a way of feeling fragile. I sat at the kitchen table, a cup of tea warming my hands. The eviction papers had done their job. Sarah was out. The family had seen the truth. And yet my phone buzzed on the counter. A message. From Karen. Mom, Sarah hasn't spoken to me since dinner. She's furious. She says she's not finished. Please be careful. I stared at the words for a long moment. My chest tightened, not with sickness but with that old instinct. That knowing. Because Sarah wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. She'd twist, scheme, claw her way back into the story if she could. And I had no doubt she'd try. I took a slow sip of tea and let the thought settle. I'd fought my battles before. I'd raised children, buried a husband, stared down bills that should have broken me. Sarah thought mocking my illness made me weak. But weakness doesn't hire lawyers. Weakness doesn't serve eviction notices. Weakness doesn't keep receipts. No, weakness doesn't survive. And I wasn't weak. The house creaked in the night and I felt it deep in my bones. This wasn't the end. It was only the first round. Sarah had underestimated me once. She'd make the mistake again. And when she did, I'd be ready. Always am. In the end, she left angry and I kept my dignity. Families aren't always what they seem. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? Tell your story below. And subscribe so you don't miss the next one.